Hello and welcome to another edition of your favourite podcast, Insane in the Membrane.
Insane in the Membrane.
Here we are again, doing it for you, doing it for me, doing it for everybody. I love this podcast, I love doing it. What are we, 3 years in now? Nearly 4 years, can you believe that? I can't believe it. It was nearly 4 years ago I was wandering around collecting interviews with people. Mad times, sitting in a coffee shop with Michael Smiley and then disappearing off to his house and then recording with him. Amazing. That was nearly 4 years ago. Can you believe that? Crazy times, doing crazy things. I love this podcast, like I already said. It's good joy. And it wouldn't be anything without you lot. You lot keep us going. Thank you to our lovely patrons that help us keep the lights on. With that in mind, we would love you, if you're not already, to become a Patreon, because as with everything, we just need a little bit of a boost. We need a bit of help keeping it going, because you know these things cost money to put together and things like that. And if you're just a quid from each of you, that would be amazing. You know, £1 a month. That's all it would need to be. £1 a month. That would be spectacular. But yeah, just a little bit of help if you can. I know you're struggling as well. I know government are standing on us, you know, as usual, and it's getting worse, which is another reason why we do this podcast, is trying to help each other out. But if you can afford it, a couple of quid a month, that would be lovely. If you go to patreon.com/membrane podcast, or click the link in the Linktree link in all of my social medias, you'll see it in the bios there. It says Linktree. If you click on that, that takes you to everything that we do. The radio show on Islington Radio, the podcast, it shows you where my gigs are. You can even book producer Paul to produce some things for you if you would like that. He's very good at what he does, as you know. And what you get for that, you'll get over 50 archived interviews. That's from way back when. Some fascinating guests involved in that. You get early access to our filmed interviews, so the videos go up for the patrons before anyone else. So you get that. There's going to be some things coming up as well that we're working on for our patrons to get a bit of a bonus to help you. Bung us £1 or so, you know, just to help us out. So if you do that for us, go to patreon.com/membrane podcast and bung us a couple of quid, and that would be very nice of you to do so. We really appreciate your help, but we do understand that you're struggling as well, so we get it. We're all in this together. But thank you to our patrons that are already there. We love you. Thank you so much. That's why I'm able to talk to you, because we've had to put 50p in the meter. So thank you. Oh, show me age there. 50p in the meter. Hey? Bloody hell. And then I remember in the 90s, it became tokens, like plastic tokens, like a key. And you put them in and it would snap the end off, and then they would go in the box. Bloody hell. Now we've got smart meters. We got a smart meter, right? And it was the other day I had it on in the kitchen. We hadn't had it on. That was it. Kate said, I've got a smart meter. And I went, oh, she did not have it on. She's like, well, I just didn't know where to put it. And so we put it on. It's in the kitchen. And the light from it, oh my God, you're going to get planes landing in the lounge. And I'm like, surely that's making the meter spin a little bit with that light. God, I sound like such an old fart, don't I? Well, back in my day, we had candles and we had just lived on bread and dripping. So anyway, yeah, so that's what's good. So I get it, you know, I get it. We're all a bit skinned. We're all doing our best. We're all doing our best, isn't it? As long as we keep talking to each other, we'll get through this shit. Although I have seen some videos of the stuff that's been going down in Florida for a couple of weeks ago. Jesus Christ. I don't know. We won't need to have a shower soon because we'll all be underwater. Anyway, come on, Richie. Pull yourself together. Let's talk about this week's guest, Sam Serrano. Now, I first became aware of Sam Serrano. I can't remember where. I just remember the name kept popping up. And then I saw photos. I was like, unusual looking person. Let's have a look at that. And then I was looking in and then hearing good things about their comedy. And I was like, yeah, let's check them out. That sounds great. So we got in touch, and we had Sam on. And Sam, it was a nice little chat. It was, again, another chat about, you know, because Sam is, as I identify as non-binary, and it's a fascinating conversation for me, and hopefully for you, because it really is opening the doors to that, to the conversation about gender. Because, you know, having grown up in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, is sort of like, you know, everything was told, you know, that's how we understood things. there was just two genders, men and women, and there were trans people, but it wasn't really talked about, but not in like a hush-hush way. It was just something that was kind of like, oh yeah, they feel like they were born in the wrong body, and that was the end of the conversation. So now we're having this conversation, it's really opening up, there are more than two genders, and there's people that feel that they identify as neither a man or a woman, or whatever the specific kind of names are, and it's a fascinating chat that I want to keep having, so that I can understand it and other people can understand it. And that was another reason why we wanted to have Sam on. Not only a brilliant comedian, but a fantastic human being to boot. It was a great chat. I think you enjoyed this one. So coming up in a minute is Sam Serrano.
A podcast from producer Paul.co.uk.
Insane in the membrane.
How are you?
I'm very well. I just came back about 5 minutes ago from getting a haircut, so it's very odd because I'm used to having the really long hair.
Yeah.
Quite weird seeing it now, and I'm kind of like, who is that? Is that me? But it is definitely me.
That's a great hair.
Yeah, I'm dead happy with it. Because I've got I have a night every time I go for a haircut. I have an absolute nightmare because I had meningitis when I was born. So if I turn to the side, you can see the scar.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
So I keep forgetting to tell hairdressers about it. So they do it. And then I forgot to tell the woman today, and she thought that she'd messed it up. And she started trying to stick it back on. I was like, it's not Velcro. What are you trying to do?
She panicked, clearly. Oh, bless her. Oh, wow. So how old were you when you had meningitis?
Literally when I was first born. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was, it's quite scary. I was born over in Spain as well. So my mum's British, went over to Spain to teach. So she was basically told she can't see me because they thought that I might, they weren't sure if I was going to make it. So they're like, yeah, you can't see it. So but all the doctors spoke Spanish. So There was a big miscommunication because my mum went in the next day and she went, oh, I need to see Sam Serrano. And the woman on the desk just didn't speak any English at all. So they had to call someone over who spoke really broken English. And they went, she went, I need to see Sam Serrano. So the woman typed my name into the system and looked at my mum and went, oh, I'm sorry, they're not with us anymore. So my mum obviously broke down, and they meant they'd been moved on to a different ward. Oh. And was like, oh, okay.
Oh, what?
But yeah, it was a very stressful time.
God. Oh, wow. What a start to life.
I know.
And has it been, and that would have been when, you just started to develop as a human being. So has that affected you ongoing?
Not massively. Not as much as they thought it would. I think when it first kicked off, they were like, oh yeah, this is going to really affect them. But yeah, it's not really had the scar is the only thing that really sticks with it. And I sometimes get really bad headaches, but that's it really. I was very, very lucky.
Yeah. I got a friend of mine, Paul, and his wife had meningitis when she was younger, and she lost her arms and legs.
Yeah.
And you go, I mean, I don't know much about meningitis, but I know that I don't want it, and that's
yeah,
it's brutal. So yeah, you did well. So I know that sounds a weird thing to say, but yeah, do you know what though? It hasn't slowed her down. She's run marathons and done all sorts. She's
wow.
Yeah, swimming and that, and she's amazing. And that's what I feel really bad when I'm like, oh, I can't be asked to go to the gym today, and then there's her running around as if nothing happened. It's amazing. So where did you grow up, Sam? So I know you. I know your name, and because you've not been around in comedy for very long, have you?
There's a lot of debate. I did about 6 gigs between 2016 and 2018.
Yeah.
And then, but I've solidly been going since November 2018.
Okay.
So with COVID and everything, I've not been going.
No.
It's one of those where I've been doing comedy for a while, but I've not been on the circuit for a long time.
It's one of those, a funny one. It's like my partner, Kate, she was smashing it in 2019, so you think you're funny and all those sorts of things. And then COVID happened and she's basically had to start again. So there's so many people the same as you in the same boat where you're kind of going, right, I need to, you do feel like you're starting again, I guess. And it must be quite infuriating.
Yeah, it can be. I think because I think it was between 400 and 500 Zoom gigs.
Oh,
It
wow.
was,
You smashed it.
I was doing like staying up to like 2 a.m. to do ones over in New York and stuff.
Yeah.
It's one of those where I was like, I don't want to lose any momentum of like ability, because I was terrified that I'd come back and just not be able to do it anymore. So I was trying to like keep up with it. It was also one of those where I was like, because before comedy I did like acting and stuff. So this was the first time that I was like, oh, I won't be able to do any sort of performing. So I think I'd built so much of who I am on, oh, I'm a performer. I do acting, or I do comedy, or I do this. So I was just kind of like, I will take any opportunity to do something.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I did a few, but as we all know, they weren't the best. So
no,
to do 400 or 500 of them, that's amazing. Well done. Yeah, brilliant. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in for the first 3 years of my life, I was in Spain, and then we moved. Me and my mum moved to Liverpool, which is where my mum's from. So most of my life, I've been in Liverpool. Yeah.
You can see you've still got a bit of a bit of time.
Yeah, it's very, very subtle. It's one of those where, because I like, if someone's from Liverpool, I think they can tell.
Yeah.
But like at the fringe, people had no idea. Like, unless they are very like, unless they really know the accent, you can't quite tell. But yeah, it's definitely there.
And how old are you, Sam?
22.
22. So what do you make of all the talk now? I mean, about mental health that we're all having. I mean, I grew up, didn't really talk about it, you know. I mean, that was many moves, the 70s and 80s, so it wasn't really a thing. So how does it feel to you now? It must, because everyone's talking about it now, it must feel all right, I guess.
Yeah, it's a really weird one, because I'm all for like, everyone should like talk about, because as you say, like when I was in, I think it was about year 5 or 6, like primary school, we would have like sessions where we'd talk about feelings and talk about mental health. And I've for a very long time, I was like, everyone should talk about it. When it came to me talking about it, I was like, not keen on doing that. So it's been kind of a like overcoming like a stick in my own kind of head that I'd built up, where I was like, I'm more than happy. Everyone should talk about it. Like with me talking about it, I'm a lot more like, oh, maybe I shouldn't talk about that. But yeah, I think because like, certainly with the school system when I was growing up, there was a lot of focus on it.
Right.
And there was a lot of kind of like, people would like take like days off for mental health, which I think is quite a new thing with schools. But again, even with like school would offer me, they'd be like, do you need to take some time away? But I'd always be like, no, I just want to, again, which has kind of always been my quite an unhealthy way that I kind of cope with it, is kind of pretend it's not happening, which goes against what people are like, you should be talking about it. So it's been like the past kind of, it's been over lockdown, I had a lot more time to think about it and a lot more time to kind of realize that I need to overcome that thing in my own head where I'm like, I need to talk about it, as well as telling other people to talk about it.
Absolutely. I'm the same. I do this podcast week in, week out, and I still have to remind myself to talk about things, because I'm better at it than I used to be. But even this morning, I just went really quiet. I was dealing with what was going on, and then it took Kate to go, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, "Actually, no. Do you know what? I'm not. I keep messing up. I don't know how and I just started talking about it, and then she was like, "All right, well, let's see what we can do," and we started to figure it out. And that all comes from talking. Because I just let it build up, and then because that comes from when I was younger. You know, like we didn't have talks about it in school, so I think it's brilliant that this generation now have been brought up with that. It's fantastic. Although I know that kids in my school, when they would be every day, I've got to have some time off. I mean, oh, have you? Yeah, you know, they would have been blagging it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know when I was growing up, you would have had to have woken up with your head off of your shoulders next to you in bed for them to go, yeah, you can have a day off. It was brutal, you know. But so with that in mind, do you like you've just said, is it so you don't find it very easy to open up?
I find it very easy on stage. That's the weirdest bit. Like, I've been had like counselors and therapists since I was like 6 or 7, and like then I think I've had the same one for a while now. And she saw a clip in my stand-up where I was talking about my mum and dad being divorced and like some of the stuff that happened with my dad, and I'd not even mentioned it to her. Really? Because I think there's something about it, about writing jokes about it, that kind of takes that. It's kind of like, well, I am talking about the mental health issues that I've got and kind of the stuff that's gone on that I want to talk about. I think when I'm doing it on stage, it's kind of like I'm not talking about it, I'm joking about it. I'm not trying to I'm not just like in my head burdening people, which is what I kind of think I do. I'm making people laugh with it. So I find kind of the jokes about it to be a lot kind of an easier kind of method to talk about it. So kind of bringing that to try and open it up with my therapist, who has to keep reminding me that I don't have to be funny in the sessions. Like, it's a therapy session, not a club 20. Like, I'm all right to relax in that bit.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it was definitely I definitely find it easier to open up on stage about stuff. Definitely.
I think I'm the same. Yeah, I will talk about anything. Like people have said, I'm brutally honest when I'm on stage. But yeah, I've had counselling sessions and I'm too busy worrying about. I want the therapist to like me, and I'm too busy worrying about that. I've had it before. They've gone, stop worrying about whether I like you or not. You're here to tell me things so we can figure them out. And so, if you start not telling me stuff because you're worried about what I'm going to think, then this is all pointless. You know,
I get that so often. Like, I had to stop asking my therapist about her because I felt so selfish just talking about myself. So I kept asking her. I was like, "Oh, how's your day been?" And she's like, "No, that's not what this is for, Sam."
I'm the same. You get that. Like, that's what you're paying for. That's why you're there. Yeah. Give someone else the things that are bothering you, so that they can sift and sort them out. And you're going, I don't want to upset her. I don't want to put that's
it's like cooking a meal for a chef as well, because you feel bad he's the only one giving you food. Like, you completely defeats the purpose.
Yeah, absolutely pointless. Having him round, then you make him cheese on toast. What's wrong with us? That's what it is. I think that's why I struggle with telling people things, because I'm like, I'm really good at listening to other people and letting them tell me all their stuff, and I'll happily do that all day. But then I think the last therapist said that. She said it's the reason. She said, and why is it that you think that you'd rather help other people than help yourself? And I'm like, because it's easier. It's easier to help others, isn't it, than admit that. It just seems like effort to try and fix yourself, doesn't it?
I think there is also a selfish part of me where I'm like, when I'm listening to like someone else and helping someone else, in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a good person for doing this. But if I'm doing that, I don't have that. I always feel like a piece of shit for doing it.
I know what you mean.
So I don't have that kind of, oh yeah, this is the right thing to do in the back of my head, which I get when I'm listening to other people, I think.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, you get that kind of, oh, well done. Aren't you you're a good boy? Yeah. And really, if you helped yourself out, that would help others.
Yes.
Definitely. I know it must be quite infuriating being around me sometimes. Do you know what I mean? It's just, or maybe that's in my own head. I don't know. Maybe I think this conversation is going to be affected by the morning I've had. So I feel like I've let the world down because I've treble booked myself for these gigs. So I feel like everyone's like, right, that's it. Wilson's in the bin. We're never booking him again. And it'll probably be all right. But, there we are. I don't know. This is what I think comedy's Comedy is good for that, isn't it? Therapy, like you say, getting things
Definitely. 100%. Like, I was having to think because I did a few gigs 2016, like 2017 to 2018. When I was first started, I was like, I was a like straight white man. Now I'm gender fluid and bisexual, just because it gave me, because I was just desperate to find something to write about. I was digging into it and having like a think about stuff, and I was like, oh, maybe this is why I've not quite felt right. And kind of comedy just gave me that place to just kind of experiment with it and talk about like being neurodivergent, being LGBT, being all this kind of stuff. So it's definitely helped. Like, I'm definitely much more open about the stuff now. Like, there were friends of mine who didn't know I had like learning difficulties until like they saw me do bits about it on stage.
Oh, really?
Because I was like, because I always get it in my head where like, I feel like if I mention it to people, they'll go, oh, they're just using that as an excuse, when it's like, it's a reason, not an excuse. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think that's half the problem with me, is that it's like late diagnosis. And I will admit this, I have been fighting it, going, no, it can't be that. I'm just unorganized.
Yeah.
Now, because I feel maybe there's a stigma attached from when I was growing up. But now I'm like, no, I really need to go and get looked at, because something's happening and it's getting worse. So there's a friend of mine, Laura, that was listening to this the other week, and she pulled me up on a couple of things, because I wasn't being dismissive about ADHD. I was basically saying that, you know, I know like a lot of comedians are probably like using it to work an angle. Do you know what I mean? Like, I see what you're doing, but I think that was me more being in denial of it all and going, doing the old fashioned kind of, no, that's just bullshit. And really, I know I'm probably, I know, I can't even say it now. I'm like, oh, I know there's something going on. But it must have been nice for you when you're growing up. And I don't know about, when I was growing up, it was just like men and women. That was it. There were trans people, but it wasn't really talked about. You never met many, I only met one trans person when I was growing up. So it wasn't really talked about. And so now suddenly we've got there are more genders, there's more diversity, there's more, people are fluid. When you found out about non-binary, that must have been such a relief to go, I am.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think because I found out about it quite late. Because I think I found out about bisexuality first, I think, and then I found out about kind of, I think it was Andrew O'Neill.
Oh, right, yeah.
The comedian. I'd watched them on, I think it was on Stuart Lee's Comedy Vehicle. Yeah, and they were referencing it. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And I kind of got interested in it. And with like looking back on it, it was very much like every Halloween, my mum would be like, oh, what do you want to be? And it would always be like the woman in black, or I want to be like, it would always be something quite feminine. Yeah. So it's kind of, so there was always that kind of thing in my head of like the kind of idea of like being part of like this group of men. It kind of didn't sit right with me. And it was kind of one of the things where I was like, what is going on? And it didn't quite, it was when I heard about non-binary, it kind of just clicked in my head. I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But then there was then I kind of got in my own head about, am I like non-binary enough? Does that make sense? Like, because I don't wear like, I still wear like jeans and t-shirts and like trainers. I still wear that kind of stuff. I just also wear makeup. Yeah. But that's very much been like, I kind of felt like if I wasn't wearing like a full, like if I wasn't like in full drag, I was like, no one's going to believe me kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, in my head, I'd like, look, even on stage, I looking back on clips of me and I was like just starting out, I was like much camper, and I was definitely like trying to put that on to prove to people like, no, look, I am this. Like obviously I am quite feminine, but like putting it out, like it was definitely like exaggerated greatly.
Yeah. I get it.
Definitely.
I think that's the key to what you said about being fluid.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's such a pivotal word, is that, because you don't have to be in full drag all the time. It all depends on how you're feeling that day, what you want to do. I think that's the beautiful thing about it. You can kind of, you be who you want, can't you? You can wear what you want. You can whatever you're feeling at that moment, And I think that's what people need to take on board a little bit more, is that we're all like that. We're all a bit more fluid. And the reason we've all got mental health issues is because we're told that we're supposed to be, oh, you're a man, so you have to wear this, this, and this, and you have to behave in this way and that way. But we don't. But we're sometimes. I remember doing a gig, and it was all women, and then the headliners. I've said this on here before, but the headliners were all men, but we were all wearing drag. I don't know why. I don't know why that was. It was just, and then the men had to wear women's clothing. And there was a suitcase and you had to pick out a dress and a wig and things like that. And I remember going on dressed like that. And it made me realise how masculine my comedy was, because people were watching me dressed like that, but wearing this dress like that, but talking about the things I normally talk about. And they were like, you could see they couldn't really, their brains couldn't compute what was going on. But I had the best time. I felt really good. I really liked what I was wearing. I liked it. And you go, oh yeah, that was a nice moment. And that's the thing. People, you do what you want when you want, really. Depending, you don't have to, just because certain people go, oh, if you're non-binary, you have to be this. You go, well, no, that's the whole point.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think people definitely overthink it a lot as well.
Oh God, yeah.
I think they think it's like a huge thing, when it's like, it's a very like it's a huge thing for me, but like I'll go into I use, unless there's other people, I'll usually use a disabled toilet if I don't feel great going into the men's toilets. But the whole kind of unisex toilet, people are going, oh, we have to change everything as quick as we can. I think if we slowed it down a little bit, because it's a big change in society, but for personally, it's a very small change, and I think it's more just growing to be more who I'm meant to be. And I think certainly obviously there is a huge mental health issue with LGBT people at the moment. And I think that kind of pushes us to be change things as quickly as we can.
Yes.
We started with the Olympics this year, where we had non-binary people in, which was great, but they were constantly misgendered throughout the whole thing. I feel like if we took it a little bit slower, and we trained people to be this is what you need to say when there are non-binary people in the Olympics, and but I completely see why people are rushing, because it's kind of, society has been built for so long on these kind of ideas of male, female.
Yeah.
I can see why people are rushing to get it changed. But yeah, I think if we kind of slow it down slightly, we'd have it would be eased into society, and I think people would just grow to accept it a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, do you know what? You're the first person that's actually said that, when and said, yeah, we need change, but not immediately. We all needed. I say this in my set. We're all transitioning in our own little way, with language changing and genders changing and all these things. Yeah. We're now, like we're saying, it's opening up, and we all need a moment just to kind of go, all right, okay, rather than just being expected to know. Because the amount of conversations I've had with the pronouns, where it's like, oh, they're he, but and you're like, if we just because people are so scared of being shouted at,
yes,
and cancelled. It's like, no, just take it. It's like, that's such a brilliant thing. You're the first person that said that. We all need a bit of time. Let's all slow down a bit and figure it out together, rather than just fucking, it's this now, kill you.
Yeah. Because I was having a chat with my friend recently about Dave Chappelle, where she was going, "Oh, we need to cancel him," and I'm like, "If give it 5 years, he'll cancel himself."
Yeah.
If he like 5 years ago, if someone went on and like did like a Chinese accent and like did like slanted eyes, people would have probably laughed at it. You know, we see it with Little Britain. It was worship, and now people are like, "Oh, that's awful." I think the same thing is going to happen again, but with LGBT people. So I think like the people who are going, "Oh, we need to cancel them now for like doing this." I think if they give it a bit, if we just let them do what they do, they'll cancel themselves eventually.
Yeah. But I think there's that as well. I think there needs to be a bit more humour involved. I'm not saying necessarily go as far as Chappelle, and I'm not knocking, because I have watched it, and you kind of go, wait, because he's talking about his friend of his that was trans.
Yes.
Yeah, and you kind of go, all right, yeah, I get where he's coming from, and I don't think it was all necessarily transphobic. Do you know what I mean? But I think he was trying to make light of it in order to get a point across. So, but I think that sometimes we do need a bit of humour in order to make it more palatable for other people. Whereas we're just so quick to go, that's transphobic. You go, hang on a minute, I don't know if it is. Let's figure it out and have a chat first.
This is a conversation I have about Chappelle quite regularly. I don't think he's transphobic.
No,
because as you said, we had a trans support act. I know transphobic comedians who like won't be in green rooms with me, or like that's transphobic.
Yeah.
So I think he's just. I think what he's saying is, I 100% like I wouldn't go see him live.
No,
because I'm like I know he'd probably bring that up.
Yeah.
And it is quite like damaging to it.
Yeah.
Like the things that he's saying, and I think with me it's just the inability. With some people, while I'm like, we do need to like slow down quite a bit. We like, it's not one of those where you're like, oh, so I don't have to like take time to listen and learn. I think that's been the issue. He's not sat and kind of taking the time to understand why people are upset at what he's saying.
I think that's it. I mean, that's again, it comes back, like you say, it comes back to everyone just taking a minute and going, let's have a chat about this first, rather than everyone chases after him, so then he doubles down, and then you're going, hang on a minute, this doesn't get anyone anywhere. Meanwhile, trans people are still getting beaten up in the streets because they've misunderstood what someone has said like that. And not saying necessarily what he said, but what other people have said, and everyone's kind of, and we just need to take a moment and go, let's all have a chat, rather than you need your life destroyed and you should have your life destroyed. And like, all right, let's all just fucking calm down, because the world's on fire and we're all going to get destroyed in a minute. So we all need a moment to chat to each other. It's still a debate to be had, and I think all you can do is do your bit. I don't necessarily agree with everything he said. I don't think, like you said, I don't think he's transphobic, but I don't agree with a lot of the way he said, the way he went about it.
Yeah.
And then I think about, okay, well, that's his choice. It's not up to me. So all I can do is do my bit, and just do what I can to be an ally, and be a bit more understanding and empathetic of everyone around me on all sides, because there's a reason why there's not him, but other people are just so full of hate and anger, and it probably has anything to do with the thing they're shouting at.
Yes.
Or the person they're shouting at. It's to do with something else, some other. Like when we were at school, we used to get bullied. Like I got bullied at school, and then I'd bully someone else, and it would go down the chain. Mm-hmm. And not because I wanted to be a bully. I was just, it needed to come out somehow, because I was,
Yeah.
So I think that's why we need to have these conversations,
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think it was just a bit more. If everyone was just a bit more open about it, I think we would see I think we'd probably see a faster change than we're seeing now if we were just chatting about it a bit.
Yeah, I think Definitely. So. It needs. I think that's what we need. We need a big pub. We can all go and sit in it.
Definitely.
But that must have. So, what were your how were your family when you sort of told them?
My family are very, very accepting people. Like, they're fantastic. Like, I do I do bits about it on stage about how people say, "Oh, it's really brave to come out," but with me, it was like I knew it was going to be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when I told like my mum that I wanted to start wearing makeup, she just went, "As long as you don't get any on the sheets, I don't give a shit." Like that's the kind of level it was. So, yeah, they've been fantastic with it. There are like I think when you do come out, you take like you can take for granted there will be people who kind of aren't okay with it. So there were a few friends from school who were kind of like, no, we're or they'd be they'd kind of have had said things in the past that I'd pull them up on, and that was kind of split from it. But I was like, it's one of those where my friend put it perfectly, where I was saying like, oh, I've ruined this friendship by being queer. Right. And she was like, no, because they're not friends with who you actually are. They're friends with the person who like you were pretending to be before you started wearing makeup, before you came out. So that was like, yeah, there was a big part of me where I was like, I need to stop like seeking the validation of people who, if I got the validation, it wouldn't be something that I kind of wanted in the first place.
Yeah. But it's nice you've got a supportive family that just go, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a beautiful.
Like, they've kind of had to be, because I think like 3 out of 5 of the kind of young people in my family are LGBT. So it's like,
really?
They've kind of had to be like, oh yeah, we've got to be okay with this. Yeah.
Yeah. They're probably go, oh, this again. Yeah, we've done this. It's whatever. It's not old news, mate. But it's. I find the bisexual thing fascinating because it's because there's that old. I think we've talked about this on here before, but I might be wrong. But there's that old sort of joke. They go, "Oh, you're just greedy, like you just want to have sex with everyone." And you go, "Well, no, it's not. It's not technically true. It's not that.
Yeah,
I just want to go hell for leather with everyone that's near me. It's not. It's just fine. Is it? So when you're, this is going to be really clunky and really clumsy, and I apologise in advance. But
no worries.
But it's just I'm just trying to understand it so I can, going forward I'll have a bit more of an understanding. So is it more about you're attracted to just like the individual, like wherever, regardless of their gender? You kind of like, if you're around someone, you go, oh, actually, this is nice. Is that what it sort of feels like?
Yeah. So it's I feel a lot closer to kind of the pansexual side of things, but like I think because more people know what bisexuality is, and I've got to explain non-binary and gender fluid, I'm like, I don't want to also have to explain pansexual. But yeah, it's one of those where I'm kind of I am attracted to someone because I'm attracted to them, not because they've got a penis or because they've got a vagina, if that makes sense. So I'm attracted to that person.
Yeah.
It's also the kind of the big thing of, it's not, I think people think like bisexual is like 50-50.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm probably more attracted to women than I am attracted to men. But that doesn't mean that I'm not attracted to men.
No.
Like, it was a discussion that I'd had quite recently with my ex, who was a woman we were talking about. And she was kind of like, oh, so like, you're now like straight because you're in a heterosexual relationship. And I was like, no, because like Harry Styles still exists. Like, it's that kind of thing where the attraction is still there. Yeah, and I think because I've spoken to quite a few people about it, like some of my friends who would be like, oh yeah, I'm straight, but like these men are really attractive, and like this man, I would date that man. I'm like, so that's but even if it's like yeah, I think a lot more people kind of would fall onto the bisexual side of things, if they kind of start to have a think about it. Because like my friend put it perfectly, where because one of our friends is kind of, they're great, but they don't understand a lot of things, but they're willing to learn to be able to explain it to them. and he was saying how like he didn't understand how people could be bisexual and be attracted to both sides. And my friend put it fairly, she was like, well, I don't understand how someone can be straight when like there's so many like attractive people. Like and that's put it like I don't understand how someone can look at like, I don't know, like Harry Styles and let's say Jodie Clark and not go, oh yeah, they're the same.
Yeah.
Like they're both beautiful people.
I think maybe it's conditioning. Maybe, you know, you kind of, when you're growing up, you're, especially with where I grew up. I mean, my dad and my mum were very open-minded, but to a point, it still would have been.
Yeah.
I think they still would have been a bit weird if I had come out. So I guess when you're growing up and you're in a very masculine environment, so you're sort of told, like, that is attractive, that is not, because you're a man, so you shouldn't be attracted to that. And so I did have some issues growing up when Howard Donald from Take That kind of appeared, and I was like, I feel weird. That feels odd. And you know, and then you see someone like Harry Styles, and you're like, he's an attractive young man. But now I understand. It's like, oh yeah, I am completely at ease with my sexuality now, where I'm able to go, that is an attractive person. I don't necessarily want to, it doesn't turn me on to, or, you know, I don't get any sort of sexual feelings, but I can appreciate the beauty in other people, not regardless of their gender, which is a nice place to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Harry, if I'd have been younger, I mean, Harry Styles, yeah, man, I bet he smells nice too. But he's only young. I hope we care. I sound like a paedophile. Jesus Christ. Get how old I am sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that it's changing. I mean, I'm glad that someone like you say you're 22.
Yes.
So your generation, I think it's a beautiful thing. Your generation will benefit from, my generation might not necessarily benefit as much, but at least the conversation is starting to be had, so that it'd be nice to get to a point in future generations where we don't even have labels. I feel we're just people in love with people and being like, we like to be around each other. Clothing is sort of genderless, which I feel would be, I feel that's going that way anyway. It does blow my mind that, it does baffle me that clothing still has a gender. You can just wear what you want. Yeah,
like I saw something fantastic the other day where there was a t-shirt on sale in Amazon, and it said gender is construct. It had like the non-binary flag, and then when you went on sizes, it said male, female. And you're like, come on.
Yeah, that
very much goes against what you're trying to say there.
I mean, I get it. I get it that clothing, like our bodies physically are different, you know, men and women's, it's a bit different. So I get it to a certain point. So sizing maybe, but there's a way of figuring it out.
Definitely.
You know?
Like, because like when I first started being non-binary, I wore like women's jeans, which or like the jeans that were in the women's section, and which again was, I think, part of me going, oh, I've got to do this now because I'm non-binary. I'm like, I don't have to do that just to prove it to other people. But like you can't fit your phone in the pockets. It's insane. Like the pockets are so small. I was like, I'd much rather like just have the comfort. And I know quite a few like of my women who were like, yeah, we now wear men's jeans because the pockets are just better. So like, even if you just split into like deep pockets and not so deep pockets, that would work perfectly. Like there's a fantastic, I can't remember whose bit it is. Someone has a bit about how we shouldn't have male and female toilets. It should just be clean and unclean.
Yes.
That's such a perfect way of doing it.
Exactly. It's so true. It should just be a bit more. Yeah, it just really frustrates me that with, for example, trainers. Now, some of the women's trainers, in quotes, they have the best colours. They have the best colours.
Oh yeah,
the best designs. And then you go to the men's section. You're like, I don't want to wear navy blue. I don't want to wear burgundy. I want to wear that. I want to wear pink or whatever it is. That frustrates me because that shouldn't be a thing anymore. It's like they should be in all sizes, all colours.
Definitely.
You know?
I had that as a very little kid. There were these shoes that they used to do for young girls called Lely Kelly shoes, and they had like sparkles on and everything. And they never, every time I'd be like, do you have these for boys? And they'd be like, no, sorry. And I think that was the first time I was like, this is very unfair.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
I was desperate for them. Like if they did them in size 11 shoes now, I'd get a pair instantly. They were great.
Yeah, I've got a couple of pairs of trainers that they're a size. I'm a 9, but they're an 8 because that's as far up as the women's ones will go. And I'm like, yes. I'm gonna get it. Luckily, they fit. I was like, oh, that's all right. But yeah, you know that. And I remember when wearing a woman's shirt when I was growing up. It was my girlfriend's shirt because it had polka dots on it, but the buttons were on the other side. And I remember feeling weird at the time, going, oh, I'm wearing a woman's shirt. People are going to laugh at me. No one said anything. No one said a word until they noticed the buttons. And you're like, and I was like, just crimson with embarrassment. Like, oh God, I'm wearing it. But it's just clothing, isn't it? It's just clothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we are definitely going more kind of that way. I think we're going like I think mostly just because there's like more people in like mainstream media who are like who are wearing clothes. It's like there's a singer called Youngblood who's always seen like skirts and like fishnets tight and like and obviously like Harry Styles as well wearing the kind of opposite clothes. And I think if we have more people like that in mainstream media, then I think there would be like a big change. I think there would be more of a change we'd see a faster change in society. Definitely.
I think you're right. I think that's exactly what it needs. It needs people in these positions to talk about mental health. That's why you've got when you've got people like Ricky Hatton, the boxer, and Peter Crouch. These people that are in quite influential positions in quite masculine fields. I think it's exactly the way to go. And I'm so glad it's happening.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, but there's a guy I follow. I've said this before on here again. There's a guy called Gerald Brenner that I follow on Instagram, and he's got this great big long grey beard, and long hair, and he wears beads, and he wears these denim skirts and these boots, and he looks fucking great. And I'm like, I wish I could pull that off, but I know that I wouldn't have the confidence to do it. But then it comes from just doing it, I guess, doesn't it? So
I think so. Like when I first started wearing makeup, I wasn't confident with it at all.
Did you have to learn yourself to apply it? Did you have some?
Yeah, because I'd kind of like it was like YouTube tutorials.
Yeah.
A lot of the time where I was like watching a lot of them. But again, like when I first started wearing it, there were no like now you've got people like there's like Jeffree Star and James Charles who are men who do makeup tutorials for men. So when I first like started watching it, it was kind of a bit odd for me to be like copying like from a female face. And I was like, oh, am I meant to be doing this? Because it's not like her face is quite different to mine. And I think it can be quite like I've only just started learning how to do it well.
Yeah.
And like it can be quite a complicated thing, like knowing what to kind of which bits to get, because there was no like information of like, oh, you need to get this foundation and this highlight and all this different kind of stuff. I think like I'd like to get to a point where I'm like able to like release like my own kind of makeup brand, which is like easy to apply, and it like talks you through what you need to do just for people who want to start wearing makeup. I think that would be like, that's something I'd really like to kind of do. Definitely.
And what was it about makeup what was it that attracted you to makeup and all that sort of thing?
I think because I've always been very kind of creative and quite artistic, and I just liked how it looked.
Yeah.
I think like I just thought people looked like attractive in it, and I thought I was like, oh, that's like amazing that they can do that with their faces. So I think a lot of it it was I remember buying my first mascara straight after I'd seen Eddie Izzard.
Yeah, right.
I'd gone to see Eddie Izzard live, and I was like, she's incredible. And I remember being like, I think I was just very, very, I've always been very influenced by like people in the media and like people I like idolize.
Yeah.
So like if like a musician that I love is wearing a certain thing, I'd be trying and find it to get that. And I think with Eddie Izzard, for the start of it, I was like, oh, I just want to be like them.
Yeah.
So that's why I started wearing makeup. And then it just kind of, it was just kind of like, something just clicked. My brain was like, oh, this feels great. Definitely.
Yeah. It's, because it's funny because growing up, like we had David Bowie, Boy George, Pete Burns, who's dead or alive, and Steve Strange. Like the New Romantics in the late 70s, early 80s were very heavily with the makeup and we suddenly see early pictures of Spandau Ballet, and they're wearing like eyeliner and stuff like that, and you're like, they were like lads from Islington. Like when you hear them talk, they're like, it didn't kind of marry up, but they were pioneers in a way, and for some reason we all sort of shut down again. It was like we were making a movement. We were kind of, oh yeah, this is things are happening. Like glam rock is camp as Christmas, but for some reason we all shut down again after that, and went, I don't know. It's a shame because I look at some of it and I'm like, yeah, it looks brilliant. But I don't know. Maybe every generation is the same. Like I remember, like hundreds. I don't know how long ago it was. How many years ago? Hundreds of years ago it was. But I know the Italians, the men used to wear skirts, and have their balls just hanging out just underneath.
Yeah,
it should be a sign of virility or whatever it was. Or I don't want to go to that. That would be. Then my balls hanging out, but it's a shame now we just sort of close ourselves off to so many things, don't we? And it's nice that we're opening up again, I feel.
Definitely, because like it's not like because I hear people go, oh, non-binary and gender fluid is such like a new thing, but if you look back, it's not new. So like Socrates was talking about people being they called it third spirit, but it's, if you look at it, it's the same thing. And like Socrates like has described himself as third spirit, so like Socrates is probably gender fluid. The problem was I don't want to say the problem is that Christians went around and went, it's Adam and Eve, and people are like, well, what about all these tribes who have all these different, and they're like, no, Adam and Eve. So that's where it happened ages ago. So it's an interesting one where kind of I hear people go, oh no, there's just man and woman. I'm like, well, that's like at its heart, that was very much like a religious belief when it first started.
Yeah, of course it is. See, the bloody church, it's always it's not even like when you look at all religions, fundamentally they're all the same. They're all about looking after each other, taking care of each other, but they always get manipulated by men in order to keep people in their place and to basically get money off of them, get things off of them, turn them into slaves in a way. And we just need to abolish the church, mate. That's what we need to do. How about that?
Yeah, definitely.
There are people listening to this now going, that's not good for mental health. I go, well, show me the proof. I believe in non-binary people more than I believe in there's a God that tells us how we should live our lives. So, there's more evidence to suggest that non-binary people exist than they do your little wizard in the sky. So, prove me wrong.
Yes, definitely.
So what got you into comedy then? What was the catalyst for that?
So I started acting when I was 4. And I do like plays with like Royal Shakespeare Company, and I was in Hollyoaks for a bit, and I did like loads of acting. Because my mum took me to drama school, or kind of like a drama club, which I then went to a drama school kind of thing. And the big thing was because I've got something called Kabuki syndrome, which is like, it's a bit like autism, but like not like quite there. So it very much like affects the social skills. So my mum was like, oh, let's put him into drama school. That'll like boost confidence, and they'll meet people with similar interests. And then my drama teacher took me aside and was like, you'd be much better doing something where it's just you on your own. And I was like, oh, I'll do stand up then. And Mum was like, that's completely defeated the reason that they've started going to drama. Yeah. So it was one of those where, because I'd constantly be trying to like add my own lines and stuff, or like say things a certain way. Yeah. And like the directors of like the thing I was in were going, no, you just got to say it this way and do it this way. So yeah, it was very much started with me just wanting to do something where I was in full control, where I was like the writer, the director, the performer, all of it. It was just me. I think it's very much like, that was where I first started being like, oh, maybe like stand-up's something I should do. Not particularly because I thought I was funny or I thought I was like, I should be doing it. It was just like, oh, this is a performance thing where I do it by myself. So that's how I kind of first started it. I went to see, who was the first person I saw live? I went to see Miranda Hart at the arena, and I was like, this is incredible. I want to do this. And then I went, because I was doing my first gig when I was 15. So I had to do it in a non-alcoholic bar. So it's like people in Alcoholics Anonymous would go to this bar because they weren't allowed to be served alcohol, but it was also the only place that would let a 15-year-old perform. So I had to, I did the open mic night there. And then I did the comedy course at Hot Water Comedy Club with Paul Smith, who's now like the biggest, like is huge doing arenas and shit. So he taught me. He was he used to do the teaching of it.
Oh wow, that's amazing, man. Yeah, wicked. That's really fucking hell. What a start. Yeah. What was it you said? Was it Kimbuki? What did you call it?
Kabuki syndrome.
What is that? Like
yes, it's so there's like lots of like different parts of it. So it's quite a physical thing as well. So if you have a look at my eyebrows, are quite triangular. Right. You see, and this one of them's faded there. It's quite the kabuki is a Japanese theater where they wear masks which kind of accentuate the eyes, and then part of kabuki syndrome is that my eyes kind of droop down and they're a bit on the slant. So when they first did it, basically people just went, oh, these people look Japanese. So it's very like my disability is basically cultural appropriation. It's very it's an interesting way to do it. It affects the social skills. There's also parts of it where they're like it's a bit like there's a bit of ADHD in there as well. But I've also like on the wait list to be tested for full like ADHD. Right. It's a really like I talk about it. I talk about it a bit more on stage now. Because I was tested for autism when I was like really young. Like I was about 7 or 8. Because I got diagnosed with the Kabuki syndrome when I was like first born. They were like, the eyebrows and the eyes lengthened down. That very much suggests Kabuki syndrome. And then they're like, they'll also like show autistic like behaviors in stressful situations and do all this. But then my mum was like, what if they also have autism? So they took me to get tested for it. And then the doctor told me that I wasn't autistic enough to be on the spectrum. Oh, okay. So I was about 6 years old and I went, but everyone's somewhere on a spectrum because the spectrum goes from 0% autistic, meaning not autistic, and 100% autistic, meaning the most autistic, and then everything in the middle. So like everyone's somewhere on the spectrum, given the nature of a spectrum. And then they tested me again after I told them that. Genuinely, they were like, "Yep, let's retest this guy." So that was, I think because it's quite rare, it's kind of difficult because I think like if I said to someone, "Oh, I have autism," or "I've got ADHD," or "I've got this or that," like people know what it is. But Kabuki syndrome's so rare that I've got to kind of Yeah, you've got to explain it to people when you first meet them. Like there are doctors who I'll say, "Oh, I've got Kabuki syndrome," and they'll go, "No, I don't know what that is." It's a really interesting one.
Yeah, I've never heard of it before. And then as you explain it to me, I'll go, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." But
Yeah,
at the same time, you're kind of going, "That shouldn't make sense." Like, yeah, you start questioning your own. Like, "Oh, is that what we're dealing with here? Stereotypes? What we're dealing with? I don't know."
yes.
Like you said, cultural appropriation. Fucking cool though. It looks cool.
Thank you.
So what's next for Sam? What's happening? What are you just getting out there gigging?
I just went up to the Fringe to do a half hour work in progress thing, and then filming it this Saturday. I'm filming. We're filming it just so I've got something that I can be like, this is what I've done in the first 4 years. So yeah, my that will be. I'll just be putting it up on YouTube. So hopefully, I think we're getting it out on the 25th of September. I think.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah, that's like the next kind of huge thing for me. And then looking at lunch and my own kind of podcast and looking at doing all this kind of thing. Because I've kind of put off releasing content until I know I'm like a fully formed comedian and I'm like able to put it out. So that's kind of the next thing for me. Going up to the Fringe again this year, possibly, I don't know. But yeah, we're it's one of those where, because I'm still quite new to it, like I've only been pro for about 6 months to a year.
Okay.
So yeah, we're still kind of getting my head around it. But yeah, that YouTube special, it's going to be called Beautifully Unconventional. And we're putting that out, 25th of September, I hope.
Excellent, mate. I look forward to seeing that. That'd be great.
So much,
and it's great that you're starting now. I didn't start till I was 32, so the fact that you did your first gig at 15 is mind-blowing to me. So clearly everything that's happened to you hasn't slowed you down. In fact, it kind of feels like it's fired you up in many ways.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
What a beautiful thing. That's wonderful. And where can we find you on the socials, Sam?
My Instagram is at Serrano Comedian, and Twitter, I'm trying to use Twitter more. It's at I think it's this Sam Serrano. Yeah, at this. I've got about 20 Twitter accounts because I keep forgetting the password. So if you type into Twitter Sam Serrano, about 100 things will come up.
Brilliant.
It's at this Sam Serrano, I think. Yeah.
Excellent stuff. This has been a real joy. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was great.